Hello and welcome to Jeremy's Yorkshire Allotment Adventures on what, as you can see, is a beautiful sunny morning here on the allotment. The birds are singing, but yet again it's still quite quiet. Now, I've had lots of messages in the last week about the sprouts, so we're going to take a look at sprouts. So sit back, relax, enjoy your cuppa and well, enjoy the show too. Well, here I am next to my uncovered sprouts, and they've not been growing very well. My sprouts haven't been developing. I've been wondering the last few weeks what's going on. They have been covered, so they've been protected against the cabbage white, so no caterpillars. But as I say, the sprouts aren't coming, and I thought I'd just take one up and have a look. Now, I have a severe problem here in this corner of my allotment. I have, I think, club root fungus in the soil, which is not very good. They're little spores and they turn the roots here in, well, they make them all distorted and big. And I say I've got a problem is now, how do you treat it? It comes because the soil is too acidic. So it's 7.2 and above, and that's not very good. Obviously rotation of crops will help, but the spores could last in this soil for anything up to 10 years. I'm going to have to clear this area. I'm going to be very, very careful now not to transplant these plants anywhere else. They'll need to be burnt once they've dried out. And, well, I have to very carefully, of course, make sure that I've got no soil on my shoes, because you don't want to take the spores into a different part of the allotment or your garden. I've wondered why and what was going on, and I think that's the reason. Their roots are very stunted, particularly this one here. And so what I might have to do is introduce some lime onto the soil. That should bring the pH levels down, get rid of the really affected ones, and hopefully maybe keep one or two. You never know. This one here, there are sprouts coming, but they're very, very small and tiny, and they're really, really hard. By now, the ones at the bottom, I mean, these have been in months, so they should be producing really good sprouts. And as you can see as well, they are covered in well, white little nasty creatures as well, so we may have to get rid of these, and they're just looking not very good at all. So it's a shame, isn't it? We were talking about sprouts, and we are talking about sprouts. A better one is that I've got more sprouts in the covered frame, and they're doing really well, so we'll talk about that. But yes, need to sort these out, and well, I'll come back to you on this journey here, but I better make sure I'm very clean and washed and not dragging any of this onto the rest of my allotment. Well, what a shock that was to find club root on my sprouts. It's funny actually. I've been wondering why they've not been growing so well. New variety, all those things, possibly soil conditions. Well, obviously it was the soil conditions. I have left one plant that looks like it hasn't got any club root, so we'll clear all the rest away. They're just laid down in that area for the moment, and I'll maybe cover them so they dry really well, get them on the bonfire, and get rid of those later on in the next couple of days, weather permitting, of course. And well, what a shame. Now, the reason I started all this sprout business was I had a couple of questions about can you uncover your sprouts, or do you need to keep them netted? It basically comes down to you. I have wood pigeons near me here, so those ones out there, they were covered because the wood pigeons, once the sprouts come, in fact, I tell you the truth, they like the leaves, they like the sprouts, they like anything, so they could just come and destroy your plants. So if you've got wood pigeons, you're possibly better keeping them covered. If you've not, then it's up to you actually. You can uncover them. Because we're getting colder mornings now and obviously colder days, the cabbage whites aren't around as much, and you can keep control of those. If you do get some caterpillars, take them off. And if you've got quite a lot of sprout plants, then put them onto one plant, and unfortunately dedicate a plant just to being eaten by caterpillars. And yeah, it's a bit of a sacrificial one really, unfortunately. Maybe one that's not doing so well, and it will protect the others, of course, because then obviously they'll all be on one plant and not on all of the plants, which is what happened to me actually as well with those down there. Now the ones in the covered frame, they are doing really well, and I think the soil's better there. I've not had brassicas or growing in that area at all. The cruciferous plants, they've not been in there, and so the soil's probably better, whereas I think even last year that's the area I grew some more sprouts, and so it's probably just that I've not rotated plants as well. So hopefully your sprouts are doing better than mine. But that's what happens, isn't it, sometimes on the allotments and growing areas. You just have bad luck. That area is part of the new plan anyway, so I won't be growing in there in the future, because I think we're going to move all the paths around here on the allotment, and that will be a path through into my sheds at the back. So fingers crossed, we won't have much problem, and I won't need, as I say, to grow in that area from now on in, and I can treat that, the bits that we can get to, and hopefully we'll get rid of the problem. I have cleaned my shoes, so I'm not going to take all of those little spores with you around the allotment and transfer it to a different part. We can breathe a sigh of relief now. At least I found out what it was. Well, here I have in a little bag my last year's season dried chillies, and I've left them all year just to dry out naturally, and the air has been able to get in and out of this bag. In fact, it's so old the bag's starting to rot, but now's the time that I can start to rehydrate the chillies. Yes, you can rehydrate them. Isn't it fascinating? A bit like my carrots and my beetroots actually. What you have to do is, basically, it's very simple. Check the chillies first that they're not rotten. Make sure they're not too dried, because you want ones that are still, that you can actually utilise them, still pliable, got a little bit of bounce to them. You don't want ones that are brittle. So then take them in, take the ends off, pull the stalks out basically, and get the seeds out, and then you can roast them a little in the oven, and then pop them into the hottest water you can get. Put a lid on them or a plate, make sure they don't float to the surface, because they need to be in the water, so try and weight them down, and there you are, you have your rehydrated chillies. And I'm going to rehydrate all of these, and then you can do all sorts with them. You can make them into a sauce, put them into sauces, you can actually make them into like a puree if you've got enough. I've not got that many actually, but I've got enough for my purposes and the things that I need to do. Aren't they amazing? Now, when they're in the fields, obviously naturally in their growing areas, they normally leave them on the plants just to dry out in the sun, and then they can pick them from when they're dried. If you've got those shop bought varieties that are dried, make sure you wash them first, because they'll just have maybe a bit of old fertiliser on, or they could possibly have a bit of soil on them. They could be a bit mucky, so make sure you clean them first. These are mine. I know where they've come from. In fact, they've come from there, which is about 3 feet away. Oh, marvellous things. They're still chillies though, aren't they? Got to be very careful. Need to wash my hands. There's another root vegetable that, when going soft, loves to be popped into water and revitalised yet again in the fridge. And that one is the humble beetroot. Yes, you can revitalise softened beetroots, even if they've been in the fridge already. You can pop them in cold water into the fridge for a few days this time though. Make sure you've washed them first, of course, and cleaned them up nicely. Obviously, you must remain a bit of this at the top, some of the stalks, because when you do finally boil them up, you don't want all the colour bleeding out into the water, and that'll prevent it. And then once they're boiled and cooked, well, you can just peel them, slice them, and pop them into your jars of pickling vinegar if you wish, or you can pop them into all different types of foods to make. They may be humble, but they're very versatile. Fabulous, isn't it? Well, some more tomatoes to make into sauce. They're becoming the last ones now in this packet, and well, they are lovely, and got some lovely nice shapes out of some of this lot, and some lovely colours too. So that one is to go into the house with me. This one, I've taken all the split tomatoes off, and they're just going to go into the bin away from the allotment, because obviously if I put these in a compost heap or pop them on the ground just to go into the floor, then they're going to produce more tomato plants in the wrong places for next season, and that's what I don't want. So I'm going to keep collecting. I've got a massive pile now of leaves with rotten tomatoes on them, and they're going to let them dry out now, and then I can burn those as well when I burn, of course, my sprout leaves. So it all happens here on the allotment. My potatoes I put in only a few weeks ago, they're shooting up and doing really, really well. So we can leave those. I'll earth them up again, and well, I'm going to continue picking my carrots, so they're going to be frozen. They were really, really tasty. I can't tell you, if you've never grown them before, carrots, get yourself a little bucket or a tub and some soil for next season, and then get some carrot seeds in, and they'll grow really happily, especially the little round ones. They've been an absolute star this year. I've really enjoyed those. And well, I've been using the leaves off the sprouts in my growing frame. I've had those. We've had them with chard, with our Sunday roast, and it was really, really nice to have something different, a different tasting, because of course chard is quite tough, and so you can steam it, which is what I did, and it softened it, and it gave a very distinctive flavour and a colour, of course, to the proceedings. In fact, here's a photograph of said chard, and look at the vibrancy in those coloured leaves and stems. Absolutely brilliant. If you've never done it before, grow some chard too. Great. Well, what can I say? Thank you very much for watching Jeremy's Yorkshire Allotment Adventures. I really love having all your comments, and yeah, it's a shame about my sprouts, but I'll get on top of that. I've got my soil testing kit ready. I have to basically dig down a couple of inches, get some of the soil, put it in a tray, let it dry out. It has to be dry, and then that can go into the test tubes with the little chemicals, and we can see what the pH level is. But as I said, that's going to become a path next year, so not really bothered, but it'd be interesting to see, won't it, whether it's alkaline or acid. But anyway, we've got club root in the house, need to solve it. Thanks for watching. Ta-ra for now.